recognize Joe Klein of Legends. Joe still here? There he is. Joe, this is their new place up here. What a great venue. Thank you. I want to make note of a couple Hancock County Hall of Fame events that are coming up. The Jerry Blevins event is coming up on December 12th, right, Larry? We have our annual banquet on April 13th, and then the golf outing on June 29th. If you're with the Hancock County Hall of Fame, you could stand up quickly. Larry's already standing. I think everybody knows Larry Alder. Spike's here. Spike Berry. Rob Obenheimer. So thank those guys for putting on this event. Jim Rookie, I'm sorry, Jim. Yes, so appreciate all that. Before we introduce Charlie, I do want to make note of a couple events. Fridays at Findlay, sponsored by Rod Walton and First National Bank. Great event.
First Federal
Bank. Is there anybody from First National here? No, that's good. First Federal Bank. I bet, yeah. Yeah, that wasn't good. But what a great event at Findlay. And on November 2nd, there's going to be an event. Coach Niecamp's going to be there, along with Nathan Hyde and Jim Heller, to talk about our 10-year reunion of our national championship team in 2009. So it'll be a great event. You want to come on out, listen to Coach and Nate talk about that special year. On November 3rd, it's our open practice day for the Oilers. Come out to practice. If you're a season ticket holder, you can get your season tickets. You can also see the new guys, the new faces that we have for this year's team. Our season opener is November 9th. For Truman State, we'll be over there. We got 2 games against Truman and Quincy. We'll have all the action on WLFC, so please tune into that unless you want to make the trip. It's only about a 9-hour trip, so if you want to come on over, we'd love to have you. A couple other scheduling notes. On Tuesday, November 20th, Ferris State comes to town. They're the defending national champions. I think Coach would agree. We owe them a couple. And we got a chance to finally play them at Findlay. It's been a couple years, so it'd be a great chance to come and see a great game in Findlay. And then Saturday, December 29th, that's our 10-year reunion of our national championship team. So I think, from what I heard, most of the guys are coming back. It'd be a great chance to see all those guys, as well as see some great basketball, play Olivet that day. So a great opportunity. So there's a couple things to keep in mind. Please keep those on your calendar. So the reason we're all here is Coach Ernst speak. And believe it or not, Charlie's starting his 31st year at the University of Findlay. I was telling him beforehand, if you've been at a place for 31 years, you might think you're in your 60s or 70s. Charlie, nowhere near that. He's been for Findlay forever. 4 years as a player, 19 years under Coach Niekamp as an assistant. And now this is starting his 8th season as the head coach of the Oilers. In just 7 years, Charlie, 159 wins, over a 90% winning percentage at home. Pretty special what we have in Croy. He's won 1 GMAC championship, 4 GLIAC South titles, 3 times he's won the GLIAC tournament title, and of course 2 times the Sweet 16, including 5 times the NCAA Division II tournament, and a whole lot of special players. So with that, Charlie Ernst.
Maybe I'm going to use the mic. Is this on? Can anyone hear me? Oh, okay. Do you want me to use it?
You can use it, but it won't help.
Okay. All right. I guess I got to talk loud. I've been doing that for the last week and a half, so we can continue that today. So first off, I want to introduce our coaches that are here tonight. Most of you know them. Maybe I'll give you a little bit more than you would normally get. So we'll start with Dan Shardo. Dan's associate head coach. Dan and his wife, Rebecca, have a daughter, Samantha, and then twin boys. And you'll see those boys ball boying a lot of games this year. They're chomping at the bit, I think, which will be great. My son, Sam, cut his teeth being a ball boy. So it's a great honor. And we take a lot of pride in trying to bring younger kids up through the ball boy system in our program. We do a special day for them and try to make it really special for those kids. And so anyhow, we got that coming up too. But where's Dave? Dave Kraus. Dan's been with me my entire tenure as the head coach, and he was an assistant for I guess it would be 4 or 5 years before I became the head coach. So he's got a pretty long tenure himself going on here at Findlay. So that's very impressive. Dave has been in our program for 10. This is 11. He picked a good year to come in, the national championship season. So, you know, probably he takes a lot of credit for that, and I probably would too if I if I were him. So, but Dave and his wife Jenny have 3 sons and I don't know how many grandkids. 7 with 1 on the way soon. And in fact, Dave's son Mark, who was a standout baseball player, I know a lot of you know of Mark, was recently this past weekend inducted into Ohio University's Athletic Hall of Fame. So it's a great honor, and so he spent the weekend in Athens. He's looking a little groggy today, but you can understand why. Homecoming in Athens over the weekend. So next up, Coach Briggy couldn't be here, but Kyle Biglin is here. Kyle is our graduate assistant this year. Many of you would recognize Kyle. He was our student manager for 3 years. Took a year away from Findlay. And then when Sam Hotop finished his 2 years as our graduate assistant, we brought Kyle back to replace him. So we're real excited to have him back in the program. Chris Brooks is also here someplace. Oh, right there, right in front of me. So Chris is our academic coach, been involved in the program for how many years? 9 years. So Chris does a great job. I think I kind of need to give him a new title. He's academic coach / PR executive. So he likes to make his rounds and promote the program. I love that. So thank you. Did I forget anyone? Of course, our athletic department staff, Brandy, my boss, Larita, and Jim, my boss, my second boss, Givens. They do a great job with the department. I know they're excited about the start of basketball season, and obviously we share in that excitement. So to my left, I have our 2 seniors here tonight, and they're both very well-spoken young men, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Guys, tell them what your major is, your hometown, and maybe your future plans. And I realize we're still 6 months from graduation, but I know both of these guys have given a lot of thought to that. And I think they've both got a successful future mapped out. And, I think it'd be best if you just hear from them.
I'm Trey Smith. I'm from Ashland, Ohio, so you guys can go ahead and give me boos at this point. But I'm a strength and conditioning major with a minor in coaching, and that's kind of what I'd like to get into in the future is coaching, either at the college level or NBA level.
Alex White, not from Ashland, Ohio, Westchester near Cincinnati. My major is marketing, and I'm finance and business management minors. So I plan on going into sales after school, and I don't have anything lined up, but I'm in the interview process right now.
All right. Both those guys, I think they're the epitome of what we love to have in all of our seniors. Our 5 seniors from last year, are all doing great things. All took different routes. Obviously, 2 of them are playing professionally, and then the other 3, 2 of them are in the workforce. And then Austin Gardner is a graduate assistant at Bowling Green. So I'm sure he'll be trying to give them all the insight on us later this year. And but we'll have a few wrinkles up our sleeve for that game. We'll worry about that when the time comes. But all those guys are doing great things, and I'm certain that the 2 of these guys to my left will do the same. So a couple other things about our team. I know a lot of you have the card there in front of you. I'm sure there's a lot of questions by a lot of people about what this team's going to look like this year. We've certainly we know what we lost, and all those guys were talented players. This season, in a lot of ways, reminds me of 2010, and I know Coach can relate to that. We lost 6 seniors from our national championship team, and I think there was a lot of questions around, probably with our fans, with conference coaches, with a lot of people. If you remember back, we graduated Josh Bostic, Morgan Lewis, Lee Roberts, Tyler Evans, Aaron Laughlin, and I feel like I'm forgetting one. Who was it? So obviously, when you think of those names, that was a lot of firepower we lost from that team. We did return 2 starters, Marcus Parker and Nathan Hyde, and we returned a lot of guys off the bench that were really chomping at the bit to play a lot. And in some ways, that season reminds me of this season. We lost a lot of production, but we've got a lot of good players returning, guys that, sacrificed, played their role, the things we talk about every day. And in a lot of ways, I think those guys played their roles very well. It's not easy to do. It does require sacrifice. And, when I think of these two and I think of some of the other guys I'm about to talk about, I think of guys that are ready for that next step. I don't have any doubt we're going to be a different team. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but I think we're going to surprise some people. Let's talk about our personnel first. So our junior class. So these are our only 2 seniors. Let's talk about our junior class because it's a rather big class. We have several guys in that class that are clearly going to be a big part of things. We'll start with Aaron Overheiser, Alex's 4-year roommate, sidekick. And Aaron has played a real key role the last 2 years off the bench for us. Aaron's probably in the gym as much or more than any player we've ever coached in the history of our program. And Tom, he's a security guard on campus, and he's shaking his head because he's probably opened up the gym more for Aaron in the last 4 years than any kid he's ever opened it up for. But Aaron works at it. He's an extremely dedicated player, and I think it shows. He's, in some ways, you could call him a self-made player. But he's a guy, to be honest, we've played him as a 5 the last couple years. He's going to play some power forward this year. Not all the time, but it's going to be 50% of his job responsibility this year is to play with Alex, not backing him up, but alongside of him. So that'll be a new look for us. When you think of our 4s in our system, for those of you that are kind of really into the X's and O's piece, it's been Taryn. Before Taryn, it was Greg Collig, Jake Hagan, Josh Bostic, players like that. Okay, so Aaron playing that position, clearly different type of skill set, but a very good shooter. And, we'll find ways that we can take advantage of what he does bring to the table. And pretty excited about the look of 2 bigs together. And something we continue to work on. And, that'll be one piece of what we're going to be this year. Moving on with some other juniors, Katwan Singleton. Katwan didn't play last year. He's back active again this year, and we're looking for big improvement by Kat. He hasn't played in a year, but he did practice all season. He lifted all season. He was very important on our scout team. Nearly every practice between him and Ethan Linder, they were always the other team's best player. And so he's going to play an important role in this team this year. Matt Ashley is a kid who played a lot last year off the bench behind Taryn. He's a guy in the mix. His brother Nick is a walk-on, and Nick is another guy that, man, he puts his heart and soul into the program, puts his heart and soul into getting better. Probably his role is mostly as a scout team player, but I can tell you his improvement is noticeable to us as coaches. And for the things we value, I always tell our players, everyone's got a role. Now, there's only going to be 3 or 4 guys on the team that have the role that they dreamed of having. Hardly anyone else gets the role that they think they want and should have. That's the life of college basketball, especially at a good program. And they all knew that when they made the decision to come to Findlay. So, but we've had many a guys for many years in those same shoes. Two other juniors, Corbin Linder. Corbin's a kid that played some off the bench last year. Corbin's a guy I think will have a role, possibly an important one, especially as the season goes on. He's one guy I could see his role increasing as the year goes on. He's battled a few health issues here in the fall. He's healthy now, but it's set him back a little bit, so he's kind of working himself back into things. And then the final junior, who it's still in the process of whether he's a redshirt sophomore or a junior, is Chaz George. And, hopefully Chaz can continue to be where he's at today. I feel like he's had a good week of practice, had a pretty good preseason, and a guy that we think now, based on what we've seen over the last couple weeks, can play a role on our team. And in some ways could be an important role. So, that's what you hope when guys get their first 2 years behind them. Every player kind of goes a different route. Some guys are ready to play a lot as freshmen. Other guys, it takes till their junior year. And some guys, it takes longer. You'd like to think that for every guy, you snap the fingers and they're ready to roll. But it doesn't always work that way. And in Chaz's case, hopefully now that he's a junior, been in the program 2 years, I think, he might be ready to make that next step. So then our sophomores, this is a big class for us, was when we recruited these guys. A couple guys are going to play big roles in this class. And, of course, we'll start with Tommy Schmock. Most of you remember Tommy from last year. Tommy is primed to have a big sophomore year. He and Trey, it's been a joy to watch these guys for the last couple years because they fight like cats and dogs nearly every day. And I don't mean fight like throw punches, but they usually argue, I would say, at a minimum 5 or 6 times every practice. But they're kind of cut from the same cloth. And if you watched us play a lot last year, it wouldn't take anyone long to figure out that he and Tommy are cut from the same cloth. They changed many of games. And in fact, they almost single-handedly brought us back in the Ferris State game last year in the regional final. But we saw that all year. Their quickness will be a factor in nearly every game we play this year. How big of a factor, I guess, remains to be seen. The biggest adjustment for Tommy and with Trey will be that last year their role was to come in and change the pace of the game, speed the opponent up, disrupt the opponent. Don't get too worked up about foul trouble. Just be yourself, be aggressive. Well, the message is a little bit different this year. Foul trouble is going to be a factor. We got to get these guys using their aggressiveness, using their quickness. We don't want to hamstring them, because that's what they do. It's what they do best. But they're going to play more minutes, and we need them on the floor. So we're still going to figure that out. I'm not too worried about that. These are both smart kids. They'll probably police themselves because they want to be on the floor. They don't want to be sitting on the bench. So, they will figure that out as time goes. And so Tommy, I think a lot of people wonder about Tommy's shooting. Tommy's a pretty good shooter. I don't think anyone in our program that watches him practice every day gets too worried about his shooting. He puts a lot of time into the game. He's been a good shooter in his career. He will be a good shooter. But I think more importantly is he's tough. He's a winner. He's just what you want running the point guard position. He puts a lot of fear. I can tell you this. He puts a lot of fear in the opponent because he can change the game. And he's someone we're excited about to see how his sophomore year goes. Anthony Master-Lasco, local guy from Liberty Benton. Anthony has improved a lot. In fact, I thought he had a really good summer, had a good start to the fall, then had a little tweak on his knee. So we held him out of practice for 2 weeks, and so he returned back a week ago today to full go practice, was gimpy for a couple days, banged knees with Aaron in practice. I think he thought he tore his knee up. The next day his knee was fine, and it's been better ever since. So I don't know if Aaron just broke some scar tissue loose or what happened that day, but hopefully he continues to get better because he's a real key for our team this season. I expect Anthony to play big minutes off the bench for our team. Brady Wildermuth, another sophomore who last year as a freshman played some minutes off the bench. Brady was probably one of those guys that in some years would have played more, but we had Alex and Aaron that gobbled up most of the minutes inside. And, you know, Brady was our third center that we brought in. Did have a couple good key moments. In fact, I remember the game at Kentucky Wesleyan last year, early in the year, before Wesleyan had all of their problems. It was our first GMAC game. Most of you don't remember. It was a long time ago, but we do. And Wesleyan was a much different team in mid-November last year than they were at the end of the year. And Brady came in. Both Aaron and Al got foul trouble first half. Brady came in and scored 8 points in the last 2 minutes of the first half. So he's certainly a capable guy. We're expecting bigger minutes from him this season. And then the last sophomore is a new player in our program. You'll see him on your list there. Cooper Wall is his name. He actually played in our JV program last year. And I get questions about our JV from time to time. So our JV program is a combination of guys that we talk to when they come to visit campus, that want to play basketball, and kids that just come and see us when school starts and want an opportunity to play. I describe our JV as this. A lot of schools, Division I schools, have a one-day tryout for their varsity program, and they might select 2 walk-ons from that 1-2-hour session. Our JV program is like a full season tryout for our varsity program, and they play 8 games. Kyle Biglin will be their coach. Last year, Sam Hotop was their coach. Like I said, they play 8 or 9 games against like Bluffton's JV team. Tiffin's got a JV team. Defiance has a JV team. So they're just Northwest Ohio schools. And so it's a great opportunity for those guys. Cooper did a real nice job in that program last year. So we brought him up to our varsity program this year. And so he's actually been in the program for a year. And then moving on finally to our freshmen. And I'm going to talk about Ethan Linder as a freshman because he was a redshirt last year. And Ethan is a very important player on this team this year. Our fans will see him play a multitude of positions, probably the 2 more than anything, but he could play the 3 and he could play the 1. He's got that versatility. He'll be a great third ball handler if we need to move him to the point. But he's got enough length to be a 3 at times. So he's got a nice overall skill set. He's a good shooter. He's a good ball handler. He's a good passer. He's got great length on defense. You know, he's a guy we're expecting big things off the bench, you know, at least at this point. And then Devin Stover, one of our 3 freshmen. Devin's got an interesting story in that he's a graduate of St. Ignatius High School in Cleveland, had an excellent career there, and then he had plans to go to the Navy. So they enrolled him in the Navy Prep Academy, which is somewhat typical. So he spent a year there, but it counts as a post-grad year. Doesn't count as a college year. But the academy is done a lot like Annapolis, the real Navy Academy. They get up early. So they're prepping all of these, not only athletes, but students to be midshipmen. And so it's getting up early. It's making your bed. It's all the same things. It's a military lifestyle for an entire year. When that ended, you either continue on to the Navy or you can drop out. And he wasn't quite sure if he wanted to continue. He received his appointment to continue, but he decided instead to transfer back closer to home to Cleveland State. They redshirted him, and so he decided to come to Findlay after that year there. So he will actually have 4 years of eligibility, but he's actually 2 years out of high school. So he's a mature young man. It shows off the court. It shows in the classroom. He wants a career in medicine, and we're excited about what he can bring to this year's team, and then even more excited about what he can bring to the future. And so you'll be seeing some of Devin as the season goes on. And then our last two freshmen are Dondre Palmer, who comes from Pickerington North High School in Columbus. Dondre's kind of like a slashing three, and we're still contemplating a possible redshirt for him just because of the number of bodies we have at that position. And then the same is true with Trent Miller, who's a freshman. He's been nursing a gimpy knee as well. He's starting to kind of get back into shape. Trent's from Pendleton Heights, a suburb sort of halfway between Anderson and Indianapolis in Indiana. And he's a shooting guard and nice shooter. I think he's going to be a good player in our program. But probably just due to bodies and numbers, we're contemplating red shirts for both him and Dondre at this point. So, like I said, obviously it's not lost on the coaches that we have a lot of scoring to replace. I probably had, I don't know how many people have asked me that over the offseason and reminded me how much scoring we have to replace. But, there's more to the game than scoring. And, we knew when those guys graduated and moved on that the strength of our team, especially early, would be defense. And I think we're going to be better on offense than people realize, but we're going to be one of those teams, which is very typical in college basketball, where I think our defense will be ahead of our offense early in the season. And, we've got the horses on defense that we can be disruptive, maybe steal some easy ones, get the pace of the game the way we want it, dictate tempo. When you have quickness out on the perimeter, sometimes you can dictate the terms of the game. And so, I think those are going to be some things we're going to lean on. Now, given the fact that we lose all that scoring that I've been reminded of, I went back and looked at our stats. We do return over 65% of our rebounding. We return nearly 75% of our steals for the season. And we return, I think, over 55% of our assists for the season. So we do return more than you think. Now, we lose some shooting and some scoring and some guys that many of you have seen develop over the course of their careers. That's where we're at with this year's team. Very similar. So it's time for the race to start. Or is that my signal that I'm done? So, I think that it's going to be an exciting year. It's been exciting for us as coaches to kind of fit these pieces together. And to be quite honest, we're still doing that. We're still doing that. We talk every day after practice. Should we be playing this guy here? Who should we use to back up there? How fast do we want to play? Who do we want? Are we going to allow certain guys to take the ball off the backboard and lead us in transition? Who's going to be able to do that? Who's going to take the ball out of bounds? These are all things that they're works in progress, but that's not atypical in college basketball. And sometimes as a coach, it's exciting to coach those kind of teams because there's a lot of possibilities. We got a very unique blend of players. I think our team, we will be good at the beginning of the year. We have a chance to be really good by the end of the year. And, so it'll be exciting to see. Jason mentioned the game against Ferris State, and it got me thinking, our home opener a year ago, you might remember, was the Fairmont State game. And they were coming off of a trip to the national championship game the year before. And now we play Ferris State this year as our home opener, and they won the national championship last year. And I think, and Dan might be able to help me, the year before Fairmont, when we played Bellarmine, were they in the national championship game the year before that? Okay. So my point being, we have played some real heavyweights in our home openers. And I hope our fans appreciate that. You might also remember we played West Liberty not that long ago at home too. I've tried to forget that game, but between all of those teams, we have brought some great opponents in for some great basketball. And last year we went on the road a lot. We play 3 GLIAC teams back to back to back this year as our first 3 home games. And so it'll be kind of like feeling like the old days playing in the GLIAC. So excited to get this thing rolling, see what we got, see where we need to work on and improve. But we got a fun group of guys that I think are ready to make that next step. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions for either me or either of these guys.
When's the championship? Where they're going to come back, that team?
Yeah,
2009. What date?
So December 29th will be it's hard to believe this is the 10-year anniversary of the national championship season. It doesn't feel like it to me. It feels like that was just yesterday. What an unbelievable feeling. I still get goosebumps when I think of that season. But 10-year anniversary this year, December 29th. There'll be a recognition. More information will be coming out about that, but mark it on your calendar. We're also going to make it an alumni basketball day. So we're going to have, hopefully, a great turnout of all Oiler basketball alums that day, with the main focus being on our national championship celebration for that season.
That game is a 3 o'clock start. It's a Saturday. Any other questions? Larry.
That's Trey to talk about his career. What got here?
Yeah, so I started as a walk-on here. I came to Findlay really because of the tradition, and I knew that I was going to be put in a successful program. Coming from a successful program in high school, we won 22 games, lost 2 games my senior year. I knew that I was going to be put kind of in that same situation where I'd be able to win a lot of games. And I knew that I was going to work my butt off to try to find a way to get in the rotation. And Coach and I, we had a team meeting, or a individual meeting, I guess, before when was that? Last week on Thursday, and he said that I made the decision tough on him to whether or not to play me as that sophomore or freshman year, just because of my work ethic and that sort of thing. And so after after my freshman year, after the first semester, I got a scholarship, and I've just kind of been on, I guess, the up and up ever since. But definitely enjoyed my time here, and gonna continue to build those memories and add to this book. Just that hard work does pay off, whether you see the results right away or it takes 2 or 3 years for you to really see those results. That hard work and dedicating yourself to something will pay off.
I would probably take away, just don't take anything for granted. It goes fast. I remember just yesterday, Trey and I meeting at orientation our freshman year. But just overall, it was a great experience. It always is. Like, Findlay is a great place to be, and I feel like it's the greatest place to be. It's a great tradition, and it's one that I know that both Trey and I will miss in the future. I'll remember games for sure, but I think I'll remember the relationships I've had with not only my teammates but my coaches and just the people, here in general. I've had countless opportunities given to me, whether it's been an internship or, just the university as a whole. So, I'll just remember the entire community in general. I think she already knows that question or the answer to that question. I get too many comments already. It's hard to keep it perfect during the games, but she's got it right. Rustic Razor, everybody, on Crawford Street.
So, real quick, let me pick up back where Larry left off. I think it's important to talk about this. So, real quick, Trey came here as a walk-on. I don't know if people knew that. And, so interesting story, but he was a football player in high school as well, two-sport kid. It didn't take us long to figure out that this kid is got big heart and tremendous athlete, and you can't coach that. You see some guys will pull that out, that athleticism, that heart, about once a week. He started to show us that every day, and when you're a walk-on, it's not easy to be noticed. Well, we noticed him, and we ended up giving him a scholarship early on, and probably the biggest mistake we made is that he was a walk-on. Because if I had to do it over again, I'd love if he was a junior right now, and we wouldn't have wasted that year as a freshman. And he, had that extra year there, because his freshman year we played him, but it was just some mop-up minutes. Looking back, that was a mistake as to how he's turned out. And then in Alex's case, Alex, we weren't sure we were going to get him out of high school. He actually turned down an opportunity to play Division I basketball to come to Findlay. And, so we couldn't be more thankful. And, of course, he's overcome a knee injury. He's done 2 internships, both of them here in Findlay, Garner Trucking, 2 years ago. He worked there in the summer. And then where did you work last summer? Fresh Encounter. So he's done internships for many of the people that you guys all know as business people in town, and done a great job. He's a business major, so who knows? Maybe both these guys will end up in Findlay, but I don't know. Alex has got such an affinity for Skyline Chili that now that we don't have one, he's probably got to go find a place that does. So, Rob, you had a question?
Yeah, I'd like to go off of what Alex said about relationships. As you talked about, we have a lot of younger players. Can you guys address the chemistry aspect of it? You talk about relationships. What's the chemistry looking like so far?
Well, for those of you guys that don't know, we always spend the summer here too, so we've gotten a good chance to really meet them. I can tell you that this year we have got some characters. I think they all know who I'm talking about. We've got Donnie. You guys will know who Donnie is within the first 10 minutes of just watching. But to answer your question, the chemistry, it seems like it's, right from last year, right where we picked off. They fit in great. The younger guys do. And that's kind of how it's been my whole career. I feel, Coach said I turned down a D1 offer. Well, that's because I came on my visit, and I felt like I was already part of the team. Some of those guys I still talk to today. John Staley, he's one of my best friends. He was a senior. I only knew him for 1 year, and here I am. He calls me every day. Sometimes I answer, sometimes I don't, but I would just say that's just the overall environment here too. Is that it's new people come in and they're already accepted. So.
Any other questions? Someone asked me. Yeah. Brandy, you want to address that question? His question was, obviously Tiffin is now into the GMAC for the first time this year. So his question was further expansion or any word on that.
So nothing official, but I think you'll see a lot of movement in the region. So from the GLVC, the GLIAC, the GMAC, the Mountain East, I think you're going to see a lot of movement with people finding their right home, what works best for them. I think you're going to see expansion in the GMAC. That may mean we'll lose some, we're going to add some. But I think you're going to see that all across the region because people are really trying to find what fits them best and what philosophy for the league is really right for their school. And we have found that I think in the GMAC, I think we're in a right place for us being all private, all religiously based institutions. So I think we found our home, but I think you're going to see a lot of change over the next couple of years.
Someone asked me earlier, and I'll address it real quick, about Taryn and Martise. Of course, Taryn is with the Stockton Kings. That's the G League team of Sacramento. Sacramento did sign him. They signed him to what's called a Exhibit 10 contract, and so he was only with them for a couple days, and then they released him to their G League team. And so that it sounds as though that was the plan all along, which is fairly typical. So he is about to, in fact, he was back in Findlay last week for 2 or 3 days. Trey worked out with him, I know, for a day or two. So, you know, that I think that says great things. You know, Taryn had time off, and where does he come? He comes back to Findlay, and he spends pretty much the lion's share of his 2 or 3 days back on campus. So, you know, I think he's excited about his opportunity. He should be. Sacramento's a young team. Who knows how their young players on their NBA team are going to do. You know, he's going to get great opportunity in a young organization. This is the first year for Sacramento's G League team, and it's in Stockton. Now, I have not been to Stockton, but I've heard it's pretty rough. So, and he concurred. So, but he is excited, and I think Coach Krause looked up their schedule. What did you tell me about their schedule? So sounds like early January they'll be in Fort Wayne. Hopefully, if he's not there, this is because he's playing in the NBA. Be unbelievable, but I think more than likely he'll be probably spend most of the season in the G League, which is still a tremendous accomplishment. So we'll see how that. And then Martise is playing professionally in Spain, and it sounds like he's kind of been on a bit of a roll. Kyle, Kyle's my update guy on social media with Martise. Do you have any late updates on how he's been doing? So he's doing great too. So we're proud of both of those guys. Yeah. So Lee and Josh were both here this summer. They both do a great job of always coming back to Findlay. Josh usually comes for, 4 to 5 days and works out, and usually works out with our players and talks to them and trains with them. And then Lee came back with they're both married. They both have little ones. Both of them, I think both their kids have got to be close to the same age. They're right around 1. So Lee is in Argentina. I knew it was in South America. In Argentina, and building a house, though, in Australia. His wife is from Australia. So he's building a home right now in Australia. And then Josh is playing in Poland, and his wife is from Canada. But I would be surprised if they didn't maybe relocate when his career's done, maybe into Columbus or someplace in Ohio. Josh loves to fish, so if he does move to Canada, it's because he wants to fish. So that's my take on the two of them. Morgan, I'm not sure what his status is in Canada, if he's playing this year or not. Rob Marsden is another one that's still playing professionally over in England. And am I forgetting anyone? I think that's it. So that's where those guys are at. But both Josh and Lee always come back in the summertime, and it's really good to see them both. So this place means an awful lot to both of them. So.
Charlie, can you summarize what that season was like?
Well, we've talked about this. You know, the GMAC is going to be pretty young this year. I think the GMAC had the senior class we had, I think, is reminiscent of a lot of the conference last year. So, you know, they'll be. I think the preseason poll came out today, and you know, a lot of the same names are at the top, which is probably the way I would have put it myself. But I think there's a lot of youth, so be a lot of new faces, a lot of guys. As we look at early box scores, probably some names on all of those schools that you haven't seen in a while or ever. So be interesting to see how it all plays out. But we have, now that we have Tiffin on the schedule, we have, let's see here. I think we have 20 league games this year. Is that right? Yeah. I'm getting next year's schedule. We're always talking about next year's schedule right now because of possible expansion. Davis and Elkins, by the way, is leaving the GMAC effective next year. So kind of been changing next year's schedule already. But so we play a 20-game GMAC schedule. 4 teams we only play once. That's the same for everyone. It's not the same for. So for your information, this year, we only play Walsh and Malone one time this year. And they're both home games for us. But we also play Alderson Broadus and Davis and Elkins only once, and it's at their place. So those are the 4 teams we only play once. Everyone else we play home and away this year. So my point is, when we play Walsh and Malone, and that's a either November or early December game, that's the only time we play either one of those schools, and unless we play them in the postseason. So. Yeah, they might be close to our first 2 GMAC games. Are they our first 2? Tiffin and Cedarville. Yeah. Any other questions?
Any preseason scrimmage games that you have to leave last year?
You know, Ron said this back when we beat Ohio State. It was great and terrible all in the same night. Actually, it was only great the same night, but terrible later on because, you know, between that game and then we beat Wright State about 5 years ago, and then we beat Toledo last year. It's getting harder and harder to find Division I schools that will play us. And however, Bowling Green had a late opening, so we are playing them on December 16th. It's not an ideal date, but when you get an opportunity like that, you don't get picky, and you take what you can get. And so that's a game we got. We do play. We're not publicizing it, but it's the perk you guys get for being here tonight. We actually have a scrimmage tomorrow night in Croy at 7 o'clock against Mount Vernon. And the doors won't be locked, so if you find your way into the gym, no one's going to kick you out. So just so you know, that's probably your only opportunity to see us play. We're going to travel over to Cleveland State on Sunday and play Gannon in a closed scrimmage at Cleveland State. So those will be our 2 that we play prior to our season opener when we go to Truman. But we will be playing tomorrow night in Croy. So 7 o'clock. Yep. So we are healthy right now. And like I said, we had a couple little knee dings, but I think those are starting to clear themselves up. And now knock on wood, we're pretty healthy. We're very healthy right now, so I hope that continues. I think that's one of the real keys for our team this year. If we can stay healthy, I think, like any team, but I think if we can stay healthy, this team's going to be pretty darn good by the end of the year. So.
For Alex, since last year you lost about 20 pounds. It should help you stamina-wise, but do you think it'll affect you where you might have to throw a few more elbows underneath to force yourself?
No, but yeah, the scaling effect. My freshman year, I learned that a good amount, so whatever works, I guess. So.
We'd be okay if he threw a few more elbows inside. Secret elbows, that's right. Okay. Well, thanks a lot for coming. I really appreciate it. Great turnout. Thank you.
We do have some raffles there to give away. Come up here, Larry. Maybe Alex will help us with it. He seems to be a hit here. All right, Alex. What do we got here first? First what we have here is a round of golf at Red Hawk Run.
All right, take it overall.
Coach Niekamp can't win. Dan Shardo. Come on down, Coach Shardo. Redonate, but give us another one.
I guess
Go
I
ahead.
already play enough. I already play enough. There you go.
Jim Rookie. Come on down. Get your redonate it. We'll see if anybody wants to play golf, I guess. Come on. Give me a good one here, Trey. What do you think, Eric? Go ahead and try that.
Laura Howenstein.
Hey, there we go. There we go. All right, come on up. Get your round of golf. We have a gift certificate from Legends. Go ahead, Alex.
All right, I'll take this one.
You know who that is?
Mm-hmm.
Who's this?
John Tinsman.
Don. There we go. John.
John Tinsman.
Is John here? Come on up. Get your gift certificate. 2 sets of UF basketball season tickets. So that'll be a good one here. I can't read the writing. Who's that?
Kevin Pancake.
There we go. Come on down. All right, we have 4 boxes of Deech's chocolates. We're going to have 4 draws, so draw 4 names. We have Joe Wasson. Is Joe here? Joe Wasson? Joe? Yeah. Ron Supley. Ron, come on up. Get your Deeches. 2 more, Alex. I can't read it. Yolanda Klein.
Fine, yep.
Yes. Yolanda, come on down. And then Tom Jakubiak wins our 4th one here. All right, we do have one last raffle here. It's a UF signed basketball. Did Moose sign it, Moose?
Need to draw
He did?
there,
Over here? We're going to draw over here. Okay. All right, one more for our signed University of Findlay basketball. All right, ticket number 2162442. Ends in 442. All right. Season tickets and a ball. Anything you want to say, Larry, before you get out of here?
I'd just like to thank everybody for participating in our event. We started out with a Jerry Blevins one last December, and we hosted Rob Keys in August, and during this one, we'll do another Blevins in December. And these are a lot of fun. Get to meet players, let them talk about themselves and what have you all show up. Oh, and thanks to Joe and his staff.
Remember the first weekend here, we met you at the Speedy gas station.
I do remember that.
I said, welcome.